the house hadn't always felt hostile. But in the weeks following the assistant's death, it had transformed into something else entirely like a living organism nursing a secret. Walls hummed with a low vibration, lights flickered even when the power was steady, and doors shifted their positions by an inch as if adjusting themselves while no one watched. Yet nothing unsettled Samuel more than the silence, thick, expectant, as if the house were holding its breath. The police returned on a gray morning, 2 officers standing in the doorway with expressions tight enough to betray suspicion. The air grew colder the moment they stepped inside. Even Saran felt it. She crossed her arms, rubbing her shoulders as if an invisible draft brushed past her skin. "Mr. Samuel," the lead officer began, "we have some additional questions. But Samuel understood what it really meant. They weren't convinced by the initial report. They sat in the living room. The officer spoke in dry, precise tones, asking about times, locations, his assistant's last conversations, whether Samuel had noticed anything unusual. Each question seemed designed not to reveal truth, but to catch him in an inconsistency. Samuel answered, but his concentration frayed at the edges. Shadows pooled strangely behind the officers, darker than they should be, deeper than the daylight allowed. When one officer leaned forward, Samuel saw the shadow behind him stretch up the wall like a tall figure bending over the man's shoulder. He blinked. It vanished. "Are you all right, sir?" the officer asked. Samuel forced a nod. But the atmosphere grew heavier, as if something in the house resented their presence. A photo frame rattled faintly on the shelf. One officer glanced at it, frowning. Another movement, a soft thud from the hallway made Saran flinch. "Old house?" the younger officer asked. "It's never done that before," Saran whispered. David appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes locked on the officers. He didn't say anything, but his presence felt protective, almost defiant. Then came the moment that shifted the entire investigation. The lead officer checked his notes, then looked directly at Samuel. "We interviewed your neighbors. Someone said they heard you arguing with your assistant the night before you died, loudly." Samuel felt the floor tilt beneath him. "There was no argument," he insisted. But his voice trembled only slightly, yet the officer caught it. Before the tension could snap, something happened that turned the direction of the investigation upside down. A loud crack echoed through the ceiling like a heavy step right above them. Dust drifted from the rafters. Everyone looked up. The officer stood sharply, hand on his holster. "Is someone else in the house?" he demanded. "No," Samuel said. "We're the only ones here." But the sound came again, another step, slow, deliberate, dragging across the attic floor. The officers exchanged a glance. "Stay here," the lead said. They climbed the staircase. Each creak of the steps felt amplified, echoing down the walls. David moved closer to Samuel and whispered, "They're hearing it too." "It's not just you anymore." Saran stood behind them, trembling. Minutes ticked by. Then came the officers, returned descending the stairs quicker than they'd climbed them. Their faces were stiff, unnerved, not by anything violent, but by the fact that the attic was completely dust-covered and undisturbed. No footprints, no tracks. No sign anyone or anything had been up there. "We didn't find anything," the lead officer said, but his voice lacked certainty. The younger officer added, "But there definitely was something moving." Silence pooled between them. The officers exchanged a final look, the kind that said the case was slipping out of logic. The lead officer closed his notebook slowly. "For now, we're closing the file as an accidental death. The scene doesn't support foul play. It was a decision made not from confidence but from discomfort, from wanting to be out of the house." As they left, Saran stood by the window, watching their car drive away with a strange mixture of relief and dread. "They think you're innocent," she said quietly. "But I don't think they believe it." Samuel didn't answer. The house grew colder. That night, the hallucinations sharpened. Not vague shadows, not flickers manifestations. The presence of Amaka became undeniable. She appeared at the edge of hallways, her form hazy and flickering like a figure trapped between realities. Her eyes held no malice but a terrifying insistence. He saw her sitting at the foot of the bed, standing by the kitchen door, reflecting in mirrors where she did not belong. Her voice carried no breath, yet Samuel heard it clearly in the empty spaces between his heartbeats. "You began this," she murmured. "You cannot turn away now." Samuel staggered back each time she appeared, yet he could not escape her. She didn't haunt him like a ghost, she clung to him like a debt. Later that night, he found himself staring at David's bedroom door, hand hovering inches from the wood, as though drawn by an impulse he didn't fully understand. A whisper slithered through his mind. Blood began this. Blood must continue. Samuel yanked his hand back as if burned. He rushed down the hall, breath shaking, mind splintering. He tried to sleep, but another dream dragged him under. Chief Aluo appeared again, not in mist this time but in near solid form, his silhouette towering, his cloak shifting like smoke wrapped around bones. His voice vibrated the dream world. You were given fortune. Life requires balance. If you resist, the pact will correct you. Samuel fell to his knees in the dream. You didn't tell me it would be like this. Oluo's face did not move, but the darkness behind him pulsed. You asked for elevation. You opened the door. Samuel woke with a gasp only to find a shadow standing at the foot of his bed, tall, skinny, watching. The room lights flickered violently, and then the shadow stepped backward, melting into the wall. Samuel didn't sleep again that night. By dawn, he realized something terrifying. The police had left. But the true investigation, the one the shadows were conducting, had only begun.